Tom, YouTube know. We're ready, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I'll open the San Rafael City Council meeting of Monday, October 5th, 2020. Let's see. Move to the closed session, of which we had none, so no reportable action. And therefore, we shall ask for a roll call by a city clerk.
Councilmember Bushy.
Present.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Here.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Here.
Councilmember McCullough.
Here.
Mayor Phillips.
Present. And I think you have a comment with regard to this evening's meeting.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
This meeting is being streamed live to YouTube, where viewers can provide comments in the live chat, or they're welcome to attend by telephone by calling 669-900-9128. And the meeting ID is 817-3692-0337#. That telephone number is also listed on a banner at the bottom of the YouTube video. If you're participating over the telephone and you wish to provide public comments, please press *9 when the mayor invites public comments. And when it's your time to speak, you'll hear a notification that the host is inviting you. You'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself. And once you hear the notification that you've been unmuted, you will have 2 minutes to provide your comments. If you are submitting comments on YouTube to be read aloud into the record, please write public comment in caps, introduce yourself, and submit your comments. Please note that there is a character limit on YouTube, so please submit your comments in groups. And additionally, if you're planning to speak to the City Council on matters that are not on this evening's agenda, please submit your comments now, because that item will be coming up in the next couple of items. It moves quickly. If you submitted comments prior to the meeting by email or letter, they have been forwarded to the City Council and they have been published to our website along with the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now turn to the city manager's report. Jim, do you have a report for us this evening?
I do. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I have a few updates and announcements for you tonight. I just wanted to start with a quick big picture budget update. Since it's been a little while, we have not done that recently. As the council knows, you approved our annual budget in June of this year, and we will be bringing forward our mid-year budget at the end of 2020. So we're right in that kind of middle of that period of time from between the budget adoption and when we'd come forward with a mid-year budget. So it seemed like a good time just for a quick update. The June budget that the council approved showed an approximately $9 million budget deficit for the fiscal year. And the council approved millions of dollars of budget reductions that affected every city department. We had furloughs resulting in pay reductions for many employees. We have eliminated city positions, and we have over 20 regular city positions and over 100 temporary seasonal that we've kept vacant and that we're not going to be able to fill. We've also delayed maintenance and capital projects. We've unfortunately slowed some things down like code enforcement and permit processing, just based on the lack of city positions that we've either eliminated, or as they're becoming vacant, we're not filling them. There was approximately $4 million in additional reductions that were deferred in June until the results of Measure R are known. That's the quarter-cent sales tax that we have on the ballot for 9 years. And then we'll know how deep we need to reduce further services. The worst case scenario is that everything is kind of back on the table and we need to look at having a lower level of emergency response, decrease in hours at libraries and community centers, further reducing our maintenance of city streets and sidewalks and parks, and reductions in every department. So again, we're in this period between the budget adoption in June and the mid-year at the end of the calendar year. But because we're not talking about it at every city council meeting, I just wanted to remind everyone that we're still in this period where we're having a severe budget deficit that's actually worse than any single year that we had during the Great Recession. And similar to the Great Recession, we don't know how long this one will last. It depends on so many things outside of our direct control, like vaccination and vaccination rates and effectiveness, and how consumers will respond to doing business indoor, and what happens with unemployment and so many other things. So we could be feeling the impacts on our local budget for many years. So that's the context of everything that's going on in the city right now. Everything we can do with city services is impacted. and the pandemic and its effect on our financial condition is the overall context to all of the services that we're providing today. Speaking of the pandemic, one of our very highest priorities, obviously, is COVID-19 response, and that also involves every department. The state is now on a weekly cycle where they assess indicators on Mondays, and then they update their tier assignments on Tuesdays. So we'll watch and see what happens tomorrow. They look at disease burden, testing, health equity, and then they announce results on Tuesdays. We've been in this tier 2 or the red tier for a few weeks now. To move to the next tier, which is tier 3 or orange, our numbers are not there at this time. Some of them are. Our testing positivity rate in Marin already meets the orange status or tier 3 status criteria. However, our case rate must fall in order to qualify for the next tier. And then we also have to be achieving those results for a period of time before we can move into the next tier. So we expect that we'll remain in the red tier for the near term and hopefully won't have to revert back to purple. And hopefully as quickly as possible, we can move into orange. But we seem to be holding steady in the near term and in the red tier 2 that we're in right now. The big news last week was that the state was allowing outdoor playgrounds to open with guidance such as face masks, washing hands, physically distancing from others outside of your family. We're in the process of opening up all of our city playgrounds, which have been closed. Parks, for example, have been open, but the play structures themselves has been closed, and most of them have had or all of them have had caution tape around the play structures themselves. And we'll be putting up signage with the new rules from the state. And we'll note things like the fact that the equipment is not being sanitized. We don't have crews of public works employees that can come out in between uses of swings to sanitize it. So the state is aware of this, and they're asking that we post information about what our best practices and how to best use the equipment if it's going to be used. And like so many things, when they open up in COVID-19, when there's a new ability to do something, there's a difference between something being allowable under the state guidelines and it being perfectly safe. There's an amount of risk in all activities that go beyond sheltering in place, and the playgrounds are no exception. We want to make sure that people are aware that because they're open, that doesn't mean that the state feels that they're 100% safe or the county health department feels they're 100% safe. They're just falling into the category now based on COVID-19 positive rates and the fact that they're outdoors, which as the state and the county learns more and more about the virus on a weekly basis, they seem to be willing to open more things that are outdoors than are indoors. So playgrounds being outdoors is great. That's very helpful and reduces the transmission, but they're also high touch. So caregivers can take precautions to decrease the chance of infection. And we'll make sure that we've got signage up at all of the playgrounds to include that advice that we're getting from the state and from the county health department. We do have, earlier this year in May, the City Council allocated a first phase of Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds, from the CARES Act. Those funds went towards assisting low-income renters in staying in their units through an emergency rental assistance program. And these city funds via CDBG went into a larger effort that was overseen by the county and several of our community partner organizations. I think it was successful. It just wasn't nearly enough to meet the demand. So it was great to be able to have this resource through the Community Development Block Grant. And the good news is there's going to be a second phase available of that. There'll be additional funds that are coming into the county that will be soon available, and we'll be working with the county and other Marin cities and towns on how that phase will be distributed. Phase 2 comes with some additional guidance to focus these new funds on residents and businesses in areas of higher COVID-19 positive cases and in lower income areas. So the funds come into the county again, and they're allocated countywide. but we should expect that a fair proportion of them would make its way into San Rafael based on our size of our city and also the extent of the issue that we have in our city. So at this point, this is something that would be public, and we would have a community conversation and a city council meeting. So at this point, it looks like it could be one of your November meetings, so as early as next month that we'd be looking to allocate these additional funds. I have been at these regular city council meetings providing brief updates on the Canal Policy Working Group and their focus on issues of importance of policy in the Canal neighborhood. But this week, a little bit later on your agenda tonight, we have a special presentation to bring the council and the community fully up to speed. So I'm going to skip that and just finish my updates with something that's going on this month that the community may want to participate in. We have Dia de los Muertos this year. Instead of being a dia, is actually going to be all month long online. And as I think most everyone knows, it's a celebration that honors the death of loved ones and the spirits that visit Earth once a year. And this year, the community can follow programming on YouTube, Facebook Live, Zoom, and other social media platforms. And it's already started actually, and will continue all the way through November 1st. So it's a month of learning and family activities. Rather than a day, there's going to be cultural performances, face painting tutorials, art activities, cooking demonstrations. There's all sorts of interesting things going on, bilingual stories and more. There's a car procession, one of those safe things you can do in COVID-19 times, that will take place on November 1st in the evening through the Canal neighborhood. And the community will be making altars to display and through the downtown. So the website for this, if community members want to get involved, you can apply to create an altar display, or you can take part in the car procession. The website is Day of the Dead SR, so Day of the Dead and then SR for sanrafael.org. So that's something that's going to be interesting to participate in all month long. And that concludes my announcements and updates. I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you to you and the entire staff. This is a challenging period, we know, and you guys have done just an outstanding job, firsthand. But I do wander around a little bit, and I'm most impressed with the services that you and the staff are providing the city and the community and during these most difficult times. So once again, thank you for your report, and maybe more importantly, thanks for your daily service. It's outstanding.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that. Let's now turn to time for public expression. This is an opportunity for members of the community to address us on matters that are not on this evening's agenda and I'd like to bring to our attention. And certainly we appreciate your comments, recommendations, and just general input. So now would be the time to do that. And I'll ask the city clerk if she has comments with regard to this item.
Yeah, if you're participating by telephone and you wish to speak, please press star 9. When it's your turn to speak, you will be notified that the host is inviting you to participate and that you'll need to press star 6 to unmute yourself. If you're participating on YouTube, please submit comments now, and note that when submitting your comments on YouTube, you do need to write public comment prior to your message. And please introduce yourself so we know who's speaking. Now I'm going to give it about 15 seconds. We've got no hands raised right now, and I'm seeing no comments on YouTube, but I'm going to give people some time. I'm seeing no comments on YouTube, and there are no comments on the telephone.
All right. Well, thank you very much. In which case, we shall now move to the consent calendar, of which we have 5 items. Any council members wish to have an item pulled? Seeing none, I'll ask for public comment with regard to this agenda item.
Thank you. And also I wanted to say, I did forget to mention that there was comments that were submitted by letter that we published to the agenda. I'll go ahead and post that link into the YouTube live chat. If anyone from the public wants to read those, we'll go ahead and add that to the YouTube live chat. And then for the consent calendar, if you're participating by telephone and you wish to provide public comment, please press *9 now. And if you're providing comments on YouTube, please just don't forget to write public comment prior to your message and introduce yourself. And I'm going to give it about 15 seconds.
Okay. Any comments?
I'm seeing no comments on YouTube, and there are no hands raised. So that
In which
concludes
case,
public comment.
pardon me, in which case we'll close public and come back to council for comment or a motion. Is there a motion with regard to this item?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Andrew, thank you. Is there a
Second.
Roll call, please. Thank you. Is it roll call?
Councilmember Bushy,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cullen,
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin,
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough,
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0, and we'll now go to special presentation regarding Canal Policy Working Group.
And I believe that would be Omar as well. Is Omar on the line?
Yes, I cannot, my camera cannot come on.
Oh, let me find you and give you some permission. There we go.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Omar.
Omar on.
No,
Omar, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. It's not really more like a presentation, but really just an opportunity for us to share our thoughts about
Sure.
how
Well,
can
thank you
we
for doing
together
so.
reopen this economy. I believe Chandra is also waiting to be, okay. So I'm gonna let Chandra start and then I continue. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Phillips and City Council members. I'm Chandra Alexander. I'm the CEO of Community Action Marin, an agency working now in conjunction with our partners to meet the needs of our community family of low income. And my colleagues and I are here to offer perspective and make recommendations based on a sound research base and data, because this is a time of urgency in our community. In all of the communities that we serve, and in particular the Canal community. At this time, we know the Canal is most impacted. Our low wage and essential workforce are incredibly impacted, and this impact is also impacting our economy. So I'm here with my colleagues to appreciate you for your time, for your attention, all of the good work that you've already done, and just to take this moment to stand together in an intention for collaboration to make impact to protect our community. So I wanted to invite Stephanie Hafner, the Executive Director of Legal Aid of Marin, to join with her comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra, and Mayor Phillips and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you and for your attention to equity issues in the Canal community.
Thank you.
Legal Aid of Marin is your free civil legal services provider with offices in San Rafael. And as the city charts its course to reopen, you've heard from our staff in many capacities, including as members of Marin Organizing Committee and as aligned with Canal Alliance and Community Action Marin. And you've heard from us particularly as to housing legal needs that would protect members of the San Rafael's workforce living in the city. The legal landscape is complex, as you know, and as you were just briefed on, and is rapidly evolving. Our office has been fielding calls overwhelmingly from San Rafael residents concerning new state laws. We've received nearly as many new case calls since March as in the entire prior year. We are training service providers, presenting on Facebook Live, And with additional support from the cities and county, we are expanding capacity and planning additional outreach as rapidly as we can. And we've identified gaps in the law that we have brought to your attention through the working group, so that community members can remain safe in their homes and available as the city continues to recover. Thank you to my colleagues, to Chandra and to Omar Carrera, and to you in the city for your collaborative leadership.
Thank you, Chandra. Thank you, Stephanie. And I want to just say that every crisis is a housing crisis. And I have been in the front line since day one. So we never shelter in place. I have been with a small team of Canal Alliance employees in the front lines, supporting the city staff and the county staff. And I want to use this opportunity to thank the city staff and the county staff for all they do and to help us fight this pandemic and many other issues that the pandemic has created for all of us. The reality is unless we all work together to respond to this crisis, we're not going to reopen the economy. As Jane mentioned, the county just moved from one tier to another one, but the probability for us to continue that trend is the same that we can maybe go backwards, right? And we are seeing other states and other cities across the country and around the world, for that matter, the second wave of COVID-19 is real and is happening. You know, New York opened the schools, now the schools are closed. Marin County had a false attempt of reopening the economy just a few months ago, and then we closed again. And here we're going in that tendency. The numbers are definitely lower than what we saw a couple months ago. We got closer to the 80%, and the positivity rate was above 25, 30% in the Canal area. In some streets in the neighborhood, it goes to higher than 60, 70%, the positivity rate. So we are the center of the pandemic. There's no doubt about that. Now, the positivity rate across the county and the positive cases are going down, but at the same time, the participation of low-income residents in the testing site are also decreasing. So is there a correlation between those two things? I don't know. I'm not a public health officer, but we all will know in 2 or 3 weeks from now if Marin County continues reopening the economy or go backwards. I have mentioned to some of you and with others, in order to have healthy cities, we do need healthy businesses. In order to have healthy businesses, we need to have healthy workers. And in order to have healthy workers, we need to have housing. In order to have housing, we need to provide support to the property owners. So it's the entire cycle that requires attention. And that's what we are here. We submitted that letter in August, really highlighting the comprehensive response that's needed to control this virus. And we are here as partners, once again, to offer our help and our perspective around the issue, to work with our elected officials, with the city and county staff, and really reimagining what it will take to create this economy where we not just reopen it, but we also resolve the inequities that put us in the situation. You know, I always had to remind people the historical inequities that have been impacting the Latino community in the Canal, how it created the perfect environment for the virus to grow the way that it has grown. So this is not an accidental thing. It's really is something that is connected to the inequities. And it's something that the virus has taught us all is the virus doesn't understand borders. The virus doesn't understand religion. The virus doesn't understand socioeconomic status. So if we don't resolve the Canal problems, the entire county is going to be impacted for that. So that's what we want to share with you. We have been working with a small team with Vice Mayor Collin and Supervisor Rodoni and the staff, and really identifying areas or policies that perhaps we can implement to support the health strategies that are in place, right? So only testing is not going to take us out of this. And I know the county provided financial support to help people who tested positive, but that is not going to do it. we need other support, and that's why we are here to answer some of your questions that you might have. I have been documented with the letters that we submitted to all of you, but please, we're here to answer any questions and concerns that you might have.
Well, first of all, Omar, you're a remarkable guy, and I have great respect for you. I know we all do, and you're facing this head on, and you're helping everybody in our community get to a better place. It's a challenge, and we're aware of some of those, but you're intimately involved, and so we greatly respect and appreciate your contribution to get things into a better place. So first, thank you for the initiative and all the steps you're taking to bring everybody together in a collaborative way to better the situation for the entire city, but in particular, rightfully so, those that are struck most directly. So thank you for everything you've done and the others that have been involved with you. Let me open to comment by council members, and we'll have some public input and circle back. Councilmember McCullough, it looks like you have a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, my question is directed at either Omar or Jim or both. Well, actually, maybe Stephanie and Chandra want to weigh in as well. But one of the, there are two principal criteria, two objective criteria for moving from one tier to the next. And Jim, you described that process earlier in your report out that we're now in the red tier, and our hope is to move to the orange tier in due course. But we have to satisfy the metrics for the positivity rate, which we have, and the case rate, the adjusted case rate. But there's also a more discretionary criterion, and that has to do with our response to impacted communities within our borders and how we've addressed the inequity or the gap between the majority community and the minority community. Can you speak a little bit, and maybe Omar, you're nodding, maybe you can speak to it first, and then Jim, if you've got, or someone else has other information, speak to how it is that we're addressing that gap so as to ensure that we're lifting all elements of our community and we're readying ourselves to move to the next tier and the next tier. That is, we're moving forward and not backwards.
Yeah, good question. Certainly. Omar, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, happy to share. I want to make very clear that I'm not a public health officer, and public health is not my expertise. I have learned a lot about public health during this crisis. But I will say there is an equity factor, I think what you're referring, right? In the equity factor, pay attention to low-income communities that have been disproportionately impacted. So the positivity rate we had to reduce at the county level, but also in that community. And also we need to make sure that from all the testing that we do at the county level, there is a significant percentage of those tests taking place in low-income communities. Now, what we are seeing is a decrease in the participation and testing, and that is due to multiple issues. I mean, again, we don't have the clear answer. We're just asking questions in the community and learning about it. But some of those concerns are related with education, simple education. Say, oh, I thought I only had to do it once, right? Simple things like that can be resolved. But the other major concern is about economic. So the debt accumulation, because people have not been able to go back to work fully like they used to before COVID-19. We all know that many services in industry have been disproportionately impacted more than others. There are some jobs that you can perform from home. There's other jobs that you cannot. And the Latinos, they have been essential workers for many of those services and industries. And they have not been able to go back fully to work. So as a result of that, you are hiring less people, or those individuals are having less hours. So they are not able to pay what they used to make before the rent. And remember that before COVID-19, people were paying, I think, 50, 60% of the income they were dedicating to rent. So if you're making less of that, it's obviously not going to be able to pay that. So people are afraid, if I go tested positive, I'm going to lose 2 weeks of work. And unfortunately, we have a lot of the issues in the beginning, just understanding the virus and understanding how can we support local communities. We had some false attempts or streamlining the process, right? And we lost the trust of the community in that attempt. So we are now fixing the trust of the community and local government. It also is an economic burden that is growing every single time. We have to remember that people have not been able to work for months since March. So for someone who is making $20,000 to $30,000, $40,000 a year, having a debt of maybe $10,000, just mathematically, that will take you a few years if you're lucky to go back to work fully as before. So yeah, the equity factor, it will bring the county backwards unless we actually respond to that.
And Amar, if I may weigh in on that. So I am the San Rafael representative on Marin Recovers, which the Health and Human Services is there. And so the equity indicator, Andrew, was brought in about just a week ago. And it really is looking at the delta between low income, and it's by census tract, and the high income throughout the county. And it's actually a mathematical equation. And if it gets to anyway, I consider and give the numbers, but that's irrelevant. But if the spread is too big, it could have, and because it's so new, the state and actually Dr. Willis and his team could not clarify at this point if we stay outside of that, could it also cause, to Omar's point, us to go backwards and to go into the purple, the first tier, because we're not getting it in alignment. I will say that the county, again, building on what Omar has said, is recognizing some of the barriers to testing and trying to address that, as well as having more opportunities for people to be tested. I mean, they get that, but it is a brand new part of the equation, and something that Health and Human Services is working really hard with our community partners to address. It could be, it could really actually slow our opening, and as it should. I mean, the reality is, Omar said, we're all connected in this, and it's a way to get at that, and it's a way to show that connection. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Maribeth, I'm afraid I can't tell if you want to have a comment or not, or if you have a comment or not, because you're not on my screen. So
I am fully technologically integrated with the meeting.
No, it's not you,
well.
It's me.
The presentation has been very informative. I guess my question is, those of us who very much agree with you on your principles and your concepts would be very receptive to specific proposals for things that are feasible and within our jurisdiction to actually do. You'll find that some of us are doers. And so if you have any suggestions and recommendations that you can bring forward, we would be very interested in hearing those.
Certainly an excellent point. And Omar, we talked about that, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and I know you're working in that direction because Omar's a do-it kind of guy too. Point well taken. Omar, comment with regard to Maribeth's observation.
Yeah, happy to share my thoughts, and I will invite Chandra and Stephanie as well to join me on this. This is very simple. My advocacy really comes from an economic perspective. Cities need sales taxes, to survive, to provide important services to all residents. So if cities are struggling financially, a lot of those services are going to disappear, right? The city already went through a downsize exercise, implemented furlough days. And what's going to happen when businesses or governments implement those type of policies, the next thing is you start losing talent because people also have families and responsibility to take care of it. So continuing in that direction, it can really hurt the city more than anything else. So to me, that is the argument. I'm making an economic argument to everyone. This is not my social justice side or my human rights side. Really, I'm trying to bring common sense to the table. As I mentioned before, COVID-19 has shown us that we are more interconnected than we think. My problems are your problems. And unless all of us work together in this, we're going to stay in that area. And again, one thing that I had to remind people is that California is just late in what's happening in other states. Because remember that California implemented shelter in place early on than many other states. So what we are seeing in New York, what's happening in Texas, all of that is going to be our future in the next 2-3 months. Evictions, closures again, and many other things. So again, I'm making an economic argument more than anything else. Stephanie and Chandra, anything else to add?
And you make a good case. Why don't we ask now for public comment? So Lindsay, do we have anybody on queue to comment on this topic?
If you are on telephone and listening, you go ahead and please press *9 if you would like to provide public comments. Once you've done so, you'll receive a notification to unmute, and you'll need to press *6. If you're on YouTube, please go ahead and start submitting your comments now. And I'm going to give them about 15 seconds. As of right now, no one has raised their hand, and I'm not seeing any comments. We'll give it about 15 seconds.
No one commenting?
Not yet. I'm just going to give a couple more seconds.
Okay.
I'm seeing no comments on YouTube and no one on the telephone.
Okay, in which case, let's bring it back to the council. Again, this is a report out, so we better understand and certainly appreciate all that's going into this effort. I know it's ongoing, and I was pretty excited when you sent that email. I don't know, it was a month ago, I'll say, because I could tell you were in the right place, going in the right direction, and certainly appreciate that by you and certainly your colleagues. So once again, thank you for all you've done. Thank you for the presentation. Keep up the good work and bring us back some results that Maribeth will be most appreciative of, along with everyone else. So if it's okay with you, we'll move on to the next topic. And once again, thank you, Omar and your colleagues.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry.
thought it looked like Stephanie Hafner wanted to say something, and then we went to public, and then we didn't recognize her coming back.
Oh, thank you. I didn't notice, but Stephanie, do you have a comment for us?
So sure. I mean, I think first the invitation to bring back specifics is most welcome, and our working group will be doing that. So my comment was to address some specifics that I know that the committee will be working towards, and that's with the housing lens to do the most to protect residents in the canal by closing some of the loops. Right. And that would be closing some of the loops around eviction protections and closing some of the loops around rent levels, including late fees and how much rents can increase, if at all, right now.
And thanks for that. And it crosses my mind that, we had just talked about opportunity zones, and I know Omar is following this closely. So we'll appreciate your comments and input in that area as well. Not now, but
for the question
at a later date, but something on our mind, let's say. Anyone else? I'm going to assume not. And thank you again for all you're doing and have done and will do. So once again, thanks for joining us this evening and all you've done. We'll move on to the other agenda item, that is 6A, Affordable Trust Fund Allocation. Thanks, everybody. Jim, or Ethan, whomever is the leader of this topic, please take over.
And let me unmute real quick. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
So today, the item before you is to discuss the Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocations. To give a little background on this topic, we first started discussing guidelines around our Affordable Housing Trust Fund back in January of this year. At that time, City Council adopted trust fund guidelines for how staff should go through a NOFA process, selecting projects, administering the Affordable Housing Trust Fund program. Up until this point, we didn't have any official guidelines. And in January, we moved forward with those guidelines. Based upon that feedback, on February 6th, we issued a pre-application process. The purpose of a pre-application was mostly just to kind of see what types of projects were out there. It had been quite a long time since the city had issued any form of funding for our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so we wanted to kind of get a sense from the community kind of what projects might want funding to allow us to inform a formal notice of funding availability. So in that February 6th pre-application, it was open for about a month, and we got 6 submissions, totaling $6.5 million in potential requests. Based upon that information, we created a notice of funding availability known as a NOFA. And on June 5th, we issued that for $1.6 million. And the reason why we chose $1.6 million is because at the time the NOFA was issued, that was the current balance of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So when we issued that NOFA in June, we got 4 projects that submitted applications, totaling about $3.25 million in NOFA requests for about 167 units total. 2 of those projects were new construction projects. That's 190 Mill Street and Whistle Stop, now known as Vivillon. We also got an application for 5 F Street, through the San Francisco Community Land Trust, which would be an acquisition of that property to turn into long-term affordable housing. And we also received an application from Centertown by Bridge Housing for rehabilitation funding. So the funding recommendations that staff has made, based upon the evaluation criteria that was listed in those guidelines for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, would be to issue a $750,000 grant to 190 Mill Street and an $800,000 residual receipts loan to Whistle Stop or Vivalon. And the reason why one is a grant and one is a residual receipts loan really has to do with organizational capacity to take on the difference between a grant and a loan. I can go more into detail about that. Happy to kind of answer those questions. One thing to just kind of flag is that since the time that we issued that $1.6 million NOFA, we did receive a $1.8 million payment from the Loch Lomond Marina buyout. When we initially approved that buyout in April, there was a clause in there dealing with the shelter in place. And at that time, there was a lot of uncertainty as to when the shelter in place would be released, kind of what life would be like, because we were trying to go through that negotiation process kind of right at the beginning of this. Since that time, staff's been working with Loch Lomond Marina, and they offered to make 2 payments of $1.8 million to the city by March, regardless of the shelter in place provisions. They've made one of those $1.8 million payments already. So if City Council were to move forward with these funding recommendations, there would still be about a $2 million fund balance after these funding recommendations. So the options tonight for City Council would be to adopt the resolutions presented, to adopt the resolutions with modifications, to direct staff to return with more information or take no action. And then finally, the recommended action, because it is a little bit longer, I wanted to kind of walk through it a little bit. There's 2 resolutions specifically. And the recommended action is to actually adopt both resolutions that would be authorizing the city manager to execute housing trust agreements for those 2 affordable housing development projects. The first one would be for that $750,000 to the 190 Mill Street project in the form of a grant agreement. And then the other would be for an $800,000 residual receipts loan for the 999 3rd Street project, which we refer to as Whistle Stop or Vivalon. And with that, I'll kick it back to the City Council.
Okay, well, thanks for your report, particularly with regard to the resolution, the 2 resolutions we have before us. Make sure we focus on those individually. I'll ask if there are comments, questions by council members. Looks like John might have a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Ethan, for the report. Appreciate it. It was very straightforward, easy to follow, and I appreciate that. The residual loans to Whistle Stop, is that along the same lines as what we were talking about previously with the Centertown project with that, the same kind of structure that they had for the loan that we granted a long time ago and that we just, I guess, restructured? Is that similar to that?
It's almost identical. The idea behind it is that while it is a loan, so it would show up on our balance sheet as a loan. The idea would be that payments would only be made to the city if there are additional revenues for the project after a payments to kind of the first lender to the second lender. So the city does not expect any payment in any given year, but if there is payment available, there would be a payment made to the city.
And what is the structure for that? Are they have a reporting requirement to us every year that says what, basically what their balance sheet and cash flow is, that we can see that, so that we, if it's even $100 or $1,000 or whatever it is, that comes back, or how do we follow up on that?
Yeah, generally there is some reporting requirements as part of the administration of the program. The specific reporting requirements are usually tied into the specific agreement that we would work with Eden. The idea is that we don't necessarily want to put any agreements that would be unnecessarily burdensome to the project itself. So generally there's already reporting requirements that a project has to do either for the state or for the county or for other lenders. And it would just be us kind of piggyback off those same reporting requirements. So we'd structure any reporting requirements to kind of their existing reporting already. So there's not doubling up of efforts.
Okay. And then the last thing you mentioned, I think it was an F Street project that was in the staff report. And is that being looked at with the second payment that would come through from the Loch Lomond project, or will we do another NOFA at that time as well for other projects?
So right now, we're not looking at that for this specific NOFA. We did issue the NOFA so that it could either go above or below that $1.6 million request. The reason why that $1.6 million request was put in there for the NOFA was just because that was the fund balance, and we weren't actually sure if there would be a payment made between when the NOFA was issued, a trust fund payment would be made, and there would be a change to the balance. That's an open question. That project would be acquiring a property, so it's dependent upon that property being available at the time that we would do an additional NOFA.
Okay, thank you.
Following up just a little bit on John's question relating to the obligation due to the city, our experience with regard to collecting under those terms has not been so good. Not a fallacy, or not due to a fault of the city, but rather the mechanism. And so I'm wondering if by having this obligation attached to them, if that precludes them from getting other perhaps needed funding to improve their operation even more so. Because quite frankly, the expectation is pretty low that we're going to collect, and so that it's sitting there as a little bit of a noose around their neck, perhaps. But I'd be interested in your comments, Ethan, as to whether or not this is a deterrent for further development of the projects we're referring to.
It's a good question, and we've already checked with both applicants to make sure that whatever way the funds would be structured wouldn't be unnecessarily burdensome. One thing to flag, especially with the residual receipts loan, is that it's what known as it'd be a subordinate loan. So any other loan would be in a higher position than the city. So the idea is that really we're only getting payment, and it's not supposed to be burdensome on the property unless there is additional funding that could move forward.
And I'm assuming, but you correct me because I don't know, but the funds left over at the end of the year from which they might pay us, they have total discretion over maintenance, I'm assuming, and they would probably apply, I'm guessing now, they'd probably apply any excess funds to maintenance rather than paying the city. Is that possible?
Generally, yeah. And how normal other projects and similar jurisdictions that use these types of loans, the idea is that if there's a repair that needs to happen, or if there's funds that they're saving up for, usually it's in the city or the other jurisdiction issuing those funds is more wants for those funds to go towards a rehab or to a new roof rather than kind of having them sit in the trust fund. And the idea is that we want to make sure that those properties are kind of maintaining rehab, maintaining the condition of the properties themselves.
But for some of the repairs, the larger repairs, they probably have to accumulate funds over several years, if not a number of years, roof, for example. How do they do that if they have to pay us whatever residual there is at the end of the year?
There's usually, without getting super into the specifics, and I know that Tamar from Eden Housing is also on the call as well, so she can also answer any questions. I would say usually how that's structured is as part of that residual receipt and the subordination of the loan itself, usually it's what's known as a waterfall. Before any payment would actually go to the city, some money would be siphoned off to go to the repair fund for the property itself.
Okay, so again, it circles back to, it seems as a practical matter, pretty unlikely we're going to recover any of this. Is that an important consideration or not?
Generally, when these funds are approved, the expectation is that the city's not going to actually see the funds at any point or see any payment back on the funds. And the reason for that is because we want to maintain the affordability on those properties for as long as possible. So if we look at the Centertown example that Councilmember Gamblin brought up, that was one example where that was a residual receipts loan that actually was starting to come due. And rather than asking for a large payment, we wanted to kind of take it back and restructure the loan itself. You can generally expect a similar type of system here for this type of project.
And finally, does it require much of our time to monitor the loans, et cetera, for little expected return? I'm just wondering if we should just make an outright grant and be done with it.
There's little administrative time on this, to be quite frank. Generally, our oversight of these types of projects get wrapped into all of our other affordable projects, so that there's usually a very marginal cost to the city to administer.
So it's your opinion then, all considered, the points just mentioned, this is the preferred way to proceed?
Yes.
Okay, and thanks for that input. Any other questions before we go to public? I see none. Let's go to public if we would, Lindsay.
Thank you. If you're participating by telephone and you wish to speak, please press *9. And when it's your turn to speak, you'll be notified that the host is inviting you to participate. At that time, you'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself. And if you're participating on YouTube, please start submitting your comments now. And please don't forget to write public comments in advance of your comments and introduce yourself. I'm going to give it about 15 seconds. I see no public comments, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you very much. We'll close public and return to council for further questions, observations, or perhaps a motion over at that point. Anyone offering, well, first of all, any other additional questions? I think these are certainly worthwhile projects. We've talked about them, and so it doesn't surprise me. Shall we go then to the motion with regard to the first resolution?
I'd be happy to make the motion. I just wanted to say, when we were discussing the Loch Lomond buyout, this was specifically the type of projects that we're anticipating being able to help out. So I know that there was some concern about lowering our affordability percentages that we discussed at the last point, and allowing developers to buy out of some of those obligations. And I know we will address each one of these as it comes to us as a council, but I really appreciate the fact that this $1.8 million that we've just received in as a half payment from Loch Lomond allowed us to grant out or loan out this $1.6 million and still have close to $2 million left in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund for other projects that are going to come available. This is where I think that the city can, while we can't build properties ourselves to address the issue that we have, I think this is really shows that in the right time and the right projects that, if they weren't going to build those projects out at Loch Lomond, we now have taken those funds very quickly and put them to use to get the affordable housing that we need. So I really appreciate that. And with that, do you want me, Ethan, to read exactly what you wrote? And if you could, can you put that back up on the screen so that I can just read the resolution?
If you can do it, fine. If not,
there it is. I make a motion that for number one, a resolution approving a housing trust grant to Homeward Bound of Marin for the affordable housing development at 190 Mill Street, an amount not to exceed $750,000, and authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement and all related documents that may be required by other sources of financing for the project.
Second.
Moved and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0, and we'll turn to the second resolution. John, you're on a roll, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, there we go. A resolution, make a motion, we approve a resolution approving a housing trust loan to Eden Housing for the affordable housing development at 999 3rd Street in an amount not to exceed $800,000, and authorizing the city manager to execute loan documents and all related documents that may be required by other sources of financing for the project.
Second.
Moved and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
Aye, matter carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Good projects, I would suggest. Let's move on to Southern Heights Bridge replacement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Guerin with Public
Bill.
Works. I miss you all. I haven't been able to present for a long time, so I thought I'd interfere with Hunter's presentation and introduce Hunter, who has great news for us regarding the Southern Heights Bridge tonight. Hunter?
Great. Thank you, Bill. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Let me share my screen for a quick presentation on the Southern Heights Bridge project here. Share screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Mayor, can you see that? You're okay?
Off mute. Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Hunter, can you make it full screen though?
Yep. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that better. This is an aerial picture we took from a drone over the Southern Heights Bridge. And by way of very brief background, council members, you've seen this before. The existing bridge is a wood bridge, last retrofitted in 1981. It was built circa 1940s. We don't have an exact date. The width of the bridge is currently 9 feet. We will be expanding that to 12 foot in width. And the bridge was closed by Caltrans inspectors back in December of 2017. And so we are excited very much to be presenting an award or recommending an award contract this evening. In terms of a schedule, we've gone out to bid. We're here with you tonight, assuming that the contract is awarded to Disney Construction, who is the contractor at this time. We would break ground maybe late November, perhaps in early December. There's a lot of back-end work that needs to happen in terms of getting signatures on contracts and things of that nature, and the contractor to mobilize a crew and order materials. But we're anticipating a 9-month construction contract, putting us into late summer next year to have a bridge open for the public use. The funding of this project is through the majority of the funding is through the Caltrans Highway Bridge Program, which is a state-run program that funds bridge construction all over California. We currently have a contract before you for about $3.2 million. The base contract is 2.7. That was the low bid from Disney Construction, and we're proposing a recommended contingency of $466,000 and change. This project is funded, as I said, mostly by Caltrans. We currently have $3.11 million set aside for this purpose, and then the city will be contributing approximately $90,000 out of the city gas tax. That portion is for non-bridge related work, and hence the reason the city is paying for it. We're anticipating resurfacing a portion of Meyer Road, which is just around the corner from the bridge. That pavement is not in great shape today, and we expect by the end of construction that it will need some sort of rehabilitation. So we're setting aside that funding at this time. And with that, I'd be happy to accept any comments or questions that the council may have about this project.
First of all, thanks for the presentation and quite clear and concise once again. So good job. Questions or comments? John, it appears you might.
Yeah, I'm just really glad to see this project finally coming to fruition. Not really any questions on it. I'm glad that we're at this point where we can use some of Caltrans dollars to get this bridge back open for the neighbors to access, and more with all the wildfire issues that we have right now, to allow for our public safety a much better access up there. I'm sure Chief White is greatly looking forward to this thing getting back open again. So.
Yep, good points. I don't see anyone else, so let's turn to the public for public comment.
Yeah, if you're on telephone and you wish to provide public comment, please press *9. And if you are submitting comments through YouTube, please write public comments in advance of your comments and introduce yourself. I'm going to give 15 seconds. We have one caller that does not have their hand raised. And I'm seeing no public comments.
In which case we'll close public and bring it back. for follow-up comments or perhaps a motion. Do I see anyone? I don't. If someone would offer a motion, it'd be nice to adopt the resolution. That would be Vice Mayor.
I'm happy to make a motion, but I had the same problem that John has because I'm on my laptop, so I didn't print it out. So make
I was
a motion
getting nervous
that we adopt the resolution.
If we need the actual words, I have them here.
I'm happy to pass it off to you.
The adoption of the resolution, we know what you're talking about, and unless someone needs further clarification, we'll go to vote.
I'm sorry, was there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Second.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Let's have a vote.
Okay, Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Collin.
Aye.
Councilmember Gamblin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCullough.
Aye.
Mayor Phillips.
All right, matter carries 5-0. And therefore, we shall turn to council members' reports, requests for future agenda items. I'm looking. John.
Yeah, I actually just have one thing to report. I was on a conference call with Andrew Henning, Chief Bishop, last week with Senator McGuire about some of the concerns we've had with the state properties and potential fire risk with encampments that have been growing during the COVID piece and our limited ability to do things because they're state properties. So it was a very productive call with Senator McGuire, and he hears us, and we hope to have some additional information within the next week or two about what we can do, what we can't do, but it's definitely now on the agenda for him.
And
move around.
There we go. Got to move a little more. I've got 3 quick items. First, many of you participated in a taping of the opening of Public Safety Center. They're combining that now, and I'm sure they're going to do a good job and make us all look good with regard to the quote ceremony. Unfortunately, it wasn't for public as we would much have preferred, but these times don't permit, and so we'll have something for the community to show them a little bit better the inside and the workings and the benefits, et cetera, of the public safety building. Second, I had a Rotary meeting today, but I only mentioned that because I had to make a presentation, which they asked for a state of the city. Well, guess what? We actually state of the city and a half since we didn't have one in March, and so therefore I sort of extended it for, 16 months, let's call it. But a lot has taken place, and we will have an opportunity and later this month to talk about some of those things that have happened throughout the city, but it was a warm up, if you will. And so I appreciated that. And then finally, just to bring you a little bit up to date on Measure R, which we're all involved in and been certainly endorsed. Each and every council member has endorsed Measure R, pleased about that. But we also have, and I'll just quickly list some of those that recognize the importance to the city of this action. Fire Association, Police Association, SEIU, Marin IJ, the Chamber of Commerce, Omar Carrera, we talked about earlier, he and Canal Alliance, Congressman Huffman, Mike McGuire, Senator Mike McGuire, Mark Levine, supervisors for the San Rafael area, that is Supervisor Conley, Rice, and Rodoni, and quite a few others, quite frankly. So no one has said no up to this point other than, one party, but, we can deal with that. So we're in pretty good shape. I want to thank John for all the help. We do have, this is probably not appropriate time, but I feel it's convenient, let's say. We do now have signs delivered, lawn signs and large signs. John and I are going to put up the lawn signs with the help of Patty Garbarino. That's on our list to do, right, John? Shake your head. Thank you very much. But we do have quite a few lawn signs that would be helpful if everyone could chip in and take some of those and distribute them to your friends and neighbors and maybe just odds and ends, if you will. So please let me know how many of those you want. If I don't hear from you, it's 50 signs, so as a slight encouragement, perhaps. So anyway, that's moving forward. I feel pretty good about the results thus far. So that's all I have. There is no successor agency, and therefore we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Bye. Stay safe, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good job.